Hi everyone, today I'm going to be showing you how I decorate this cake. So I'm going to give you also some tips for general cake decorating, which is basically start off by cleaning your surface. This is what I'm doing, and I'm just going to give you general tips and tricks throughout this video as well. So the next thing I do is really start by gathering my materials. You don't need to use the same ones I do obviously, but here are some that I may recommend. So this is cornstarch. Use this instead of icing sugar. And this is the fondant I use, and this is the frosting I use. Oh, that was fast. So then I get my plate and my spatulas, and I start off with my cake. So this was in the fridge, which really is just, you want to make sure it's cooled down before you try and start decorating it. So I'm unwrapping it from this wrapping that I put it in, and I start off, as you can see, this cake is uneven. Yours probably will be too. So you're going to want to grab a knife. I'm not sure, by the way, why I opened my frosting first, then decide to put it on my plate first, using the frosting as glue to really get it on there, on my plate, which is on my cake stand. But I would recommend probably trying to get the cake slices even before you do that. So I'm putting them on. I have two, and I'm kind of just cutting and trying to make it a little more even. I didn't do a great job at this, but, no need to worry. Then I spread the frosting. Because I'm going to be covering this cake in fondant, I don't really worry about how messy it is or picking up any cake crumbs, but if you want to not really pick up cake crumbs, people recommend doing a crumb layer first, where it's kind of thinner and you pick up the crumbs, sticking it in the fridge again, and then going over again. But now I'm setting that to the side, and I'm going to roll out my fondant next. So here's a fondant mat that I have. I just bought it from Michael's, and I'm making sure to really tape down all the edges so that it lays nice and flat. Next, I'm covering it again with that cornstarch I showed you at the beginning, because this prevents the fondant from sticking. I'm going in with my huge mound of fondant, which I got from Michael's, and I'm really just rolling it out, trying to get a nice big surface to make sure that it can cover my entire cake. So once it's nice and flat, which by the way, I didn't use the rings, as you can see, when I used my rolling pin, because they just make marks. I don't know how to stop that from happening. But that ensures that you get it to an even kind of thickness. But I feel pretty confident in my scales, so I just went ahead and I'm just putting it on top of my cake. Next, you're going to want to smooth that out. So as you can see, I'm really smoothing everything out, but there's really going to be that little bump. I'll show you how to get rid of this later. So I'm grabbing a pair of scissors and I'm kind of cutting, and then I'm going to really fold in one side, kind of on top of the other. And then when I decorate my cake, I'll just make sure to put a decoration kind of on top of this, which you will see later. So I could have used colored fondant. I wanted a green base, but I decided instead to just use some, first I cut off my skirt. But here, I'll show you some edible cake paint in green, which I got from Michael's, and some paintbrushes that I am only using for kind of food materials, like chocolate, or for this cake paint, which I'm using now. It's kind of like a watercolor paint that's edible and totally safe to eat and just paint on cakes, and I just think it's super fun. So here I am putting my green all over the cake to really give it that base, and I kind of like the look. Oops, that went fast, but I'm going to let it out to dry and then start working on my mushrooms. Sorry about that. So here I am kind of molding my red fondant. If you want, you can change the colors, which I'll be showing you later, by combining different colors together, but I like this base red color, so I'm starting with my red and folding it into a mushroom shape. Next, I'm getting the excess kind of skirt that I cut off my cake earlier, and I'm just finding a piece that looks good that I already have kind of rolled out. I'm just taking this because I don't want to waste any fondant, and I'm going to take off little pieces of it and kind of roll them into little balls and put them on the cake. It wasn't really sticking, so I go ahead and grab some water to use as glue and put it on the red first. But then once I tried this method, I realized it kind of left some red like dye from the fondant on my white, and I didn't like that. So for the next round, I went and I put this kind of water, which is serving as the glue, onto the actual white dot itself. Then I put it on the red mushroom head, which I just put on this little cup as a stand to make it easier to work with. And I liked that a lot better. So I did that for all the little white dots to make my mushroom. And I just went on like that. And once I was happy with my finished mushroom head, I went and I found some toothpicks that I would use to attach the white kind of mushroom body to the red part, and then all of this to the cake. So I make my little body, and I grab a toothpick, and then I really just stick it through, making sure that it has space to go into the red, and then has space to go into the cake. So you can see I started off by putting it at the edge of the cake, and this is really all about trial and error. I realized that way it was really just falling off, and one toothpick was not enough because this mushroom was pretty heavy. So I decided to go and get another toothpick, put it in like that, and I realized this worked a lot better. So really, there's no one-set way to do things. The thing about cake decorating is it's really easy to fix your mistakes, so don't be scared to make them. Then I decided to go in and make him a little friend, a little smaller mushroom. So I'm going with the same method again of kind of rolling that red into the mushroom head, sticking the white dots on. I realized I didn't really actually need glue because the fondant's kind of sticky sometimes. Sometimes it's not if you use too much shortening powder on it. It really loses its stickiness, but that's what it's for. So, yeah. By the way, shortening powder as opposed to the icing powder prevents the fondant from cracking, which can happen if you use too much icing powder as your flour type instead. So then I went in with another toothpick method, and I just put him next to his friend on the cake. It's really just, I wasn't really sure what direction I wanted to go in. I knew I wanted to make kind of a fairy secret garden inspired cake, but it really all just came to life in front of you. Like, you will see basically how I started making this cake. So I like the way that those two looked. I'm showing you the positioning and how they look to me and what I'm deciding to be. Like, you're looking at the back, and yeah. So the next thing I wanted to do is really create the border around the edge of the cake, because it was kind of bothering me, just the unevenness and such. So I went in and I mixed some green and some white together to create a lighter green, like I showed you before, and like I was telling you about how you can make your own fondant colors. Once again, I bought the colored fondant, which just came with the primary colors and green from Michael's, but you can really use any or even make your own with the recipes you find online. I also found these, this is not sponsored by Michael's, by the way, I just love them. Before you go, make sure you use your coupons, so they always have coupons available you can find online. So I went in with these little stampers that I actually found there that cost like $3, and this one was a succulent one, and you meant to roll them up to create the succulent looking thing. So I think I actually do kind of put them on top of each other, stack them, create the succulent, and put it over the ugly part of the cake, which you will see later. But the rest of them, I decided I like them just kind of as like grass, so I decided to go in and use these as a grass to create a grass border around the bottom of my cake. So I went in and I made a bunch of these. I rolled out my green and I just went in and I put them around the cake. It was sticky, so I didn't use any glue really, as you can see here. And yeah, I just went and rolled around and kept doing that. By the way, these little plastic things that I'm holding sometimes are just tools that I also bought at Michael's, which I've never used to decorate a cake before and definitely are not necessary, but they were kind of fun. This is a trick to save the fondant from drying out. You just want to put it in a place with less air, so I'm putting in the colors I've used that I might use later in this bag because I've taken them out of their original packaging and I don't want them to dry up. Next, I'm going to make kind of a lake puddle type thing, so I'm combining blue and white together, but because it's going to be water, I don't want to mix it all the way through. So you can kind of see there are still stripes in there, and I want that to really create that water look. So I'm going to roll it out, making sure that it's not mixing all the way through. And then I'm going to roll it out, and once I'm happy with it, I cut using a knife, a little kind of, like a pond. Yeah, a pond is really what I was going for. Shape, I play around with the placement on the cake, and once I'm happy, I kind of stick it down and move on to creating my rocks. So I combined all the primary colors because I knew that that's kind of how you make brown. It's color theory here. And once I was happy, I just started making a bunch of little pebble-shaped rocks and placing them around the edge of this pond that I had made. Using my little tool to kind of smush the pond down on the edges. Really just going in and creating those rocks. It was a lot of mixing to get the color I wanted. And now I'm going in next and I'm trying to create a purple to create a butterfly, which honestly took me a long time to find a purple that I was happy with. I didn't really end up that happy with the final purple color, but sometimes you just gotta give up because you realize you're using too much fondant to make this one color, and it ends up being okay. So I rolled out my two purples because I wanted two shades, and I cut out a little butterfly, and there it is. There's the one I made. Then, oh my gosh, I was having the hardest time placing it on the cake, but I finally got it, and I was just so happy. You could see my frustration before, but I got it. Next thing I want to do is really create like a little rose bush. So I want to create a nice pink color. As you can see, there's already a ball sitting in front of me because once again, I was having trouble creating the color I wanted. So I'd kind of abandoned some of my pink and then add in more white, so I just wouldn't be wasting a ton of white, So I'm grabbing my other stamp tool that I have from Michael's, and I'm cutting out the petals and using like the rose petal one. So here I am cutting out the petals, and then what you do is basically you stack them on each other interlockingly, but one is slightly over from the other, and then you roll it up. as you can kind of see here, and that creates basically a little rose. So I really had to experiment because the default way makes the flowers a lot bigger than I actually wanted them to be. So I experimented a lot in finding out a way to make the flowers smaller than I wanted. You also cut off the end and spread out the petals, and here I am just playing with the placement of these little roses on the cake. Like I said, it's really about trial and error, and there's no like right or wrong way. If you just know some general design and what looks good to you, well, then, you know, that's good enough. So there I am, placing a little rose bush, cutting out more and more flowers, just going over the same process again and again. I ended up using like half the strip or less, and then I decided to add in some little petals, and this was once again trial and error. As you can see, it fell over right there. I thought, okay, I'll just use some water to glue it. That ended up not working, which you might see fall over again. So I ended up creating a little ball of green and putting it there to kind of support the flower. And this ended up being the last step. After this, I was pretty happy with the way that my cake turned out, and I just thought it looked really cute, and I was very happy with this final result. Let me know what you think down below, and thanks for watching.